everybody. Welcome to Digging Deeper Jazz. I'm Jeff Antoniuk. So today I want to talk about Art Tatum rhythm changes. Okay, so we'll have to dig in a little bit to what that is. A cool harmonic set of substitute changes for rhythm changes. This is pretty cool stuff. You've heard all your heroes doing this, whether it's Monk, Art Tatum, Coltrane, Sonny Stitt, J.J. Johnson, doesn't matter. This is pretty cool, and we can expand out from this knowledge. It's a very specific bit of information, but what we can do with it and how it makes us think differently is the most important thing. Of course, I'm talking to you, adult, amateur, semi-pro musicians, the folks that I love to talk to, the folks that I love to serve. So I think you're going to really enjoy this. And by the way, I appreciate everybody that tuned in a couple days ago to the Digging Deeper Jazz webinar. We had hundreds of people on there, fantastic questions. So we're going to keep doing that once every month or so. It's a wonderful way for me to understand what you're thinking, and if I can answer some questions for you and help you move ahead. Somebody asked me about what I'm currently practicing, and that was sort of interesting because what I teach and what I practice are often very related, but sometimes not. I'm working on some new ideas that aren't ready for prime time. That's what practice is. It was a cool discussion. Okay, so let's get into this idea of rhythm changes to begin with. So rhythm changes is referring to the song I Got Rhythm by George Gershwin, and so we generalize that, make it generic, the chord changes. So like the blues are a generic set of chord changes that we can write a song over. Tens of thousands of songs have been written over the blues. Well, hundreds, probably thousands of songs have been written over rhythm changes. And it's such a popular thing for jazz musicians to solo over or to play. Hey, let's play a rhythm changes tune. Let's play Oleo. Let's play I Got Rhythm. We try to get creative with it. So Art Tatum, going back decades and decades, had this amazing set of chords that he loved to use. So let's do this. Let's start off by hearing two A sections of just plain old rhythm changes so we know what we're talking about. So this is item number 1 on the sheet. I'm just going to improvise twice through that so we can get a sense of what we're talking about. This 1, 6, 2, 5 progression. That's kind of the heart of it. All right, so item number 1 is actually just the first 5 measures. I played 8 measures, the full A section. So getting that in your ears. You've heard that a million times. If you've listened to any jazz, you know what rhythm changes is. So here's where jazz musicians start getting creative. We're talking about chord substitutions. Okay, so how do we substitute chords? How do we know what will work? Well, that's the art and the genius of it. So here's something that Art Tatum realized. If you look at measures 3 and 4 of rhythm changes, what we see is an E chord progressing to an A chord, progressing to a D chord, progressing to a G chord, progressing to C. Some of us will recognize that as the circle of fourths. E, A, D, G, C, right? So circle of fourths. Interesting. We also call that a 3-6, 2-5-1 progression. So if that's new to you, this idea of grouping chords together as a given progression, this is huge. This is the kind of thing that I help people with at Jazzwire. You hear me talk about Jazzwire all the time. If that's new to you, we can add rocket fuel to what you're understanding if we get to work together at Jazzwire. I hope you'll check that out. Okay, so let's push ahead from there, assuming you understand that. Great. So those chords are lumped together. And we understand that an E chord likes to progress to an A. It's sort of a 5-1. And A likes to progress to a D. It's a 5-1. D likes to progress to a G. It's a 5-1. Guess what? G likes to progress to a C. It's a 5-1. So it's this chain of 5-1s, 3-6, 2-5-1. Cool. So I think Art Tatum was saying, well, if all those like to progress, I wonder what came before it. What comes before an E? What comes before that chord? Can we create a longer chain? Instead of 5 chords, can we create 6 or 8 or 10 chords? The answer is yes. Item number 2, we see that Art Tatum just kept going back one chord, From that E chord in the third measure, he went back one and discovered, well, it's a B. He went back one, discovered it's F sharp. He went back one, discovered it's D flat or C sharp. He went back one, and now he's at the beginning of the form of rhythm changes, and it gets to an A flat. So we're doing rhythm changes in C here, just to keep things simple for everybody. So instead of starting on C, he's starting on A flat 7. So these are interesting chord substitutions because they're not really substitutions the way a tritone sub is. And we'll talk about that in a second. These are a different set of chord changes. So we're going to talk about how to use those in just a minute. But I brought up tritone subs. I'm doing 4 online workshops that I announced just last week. We just did one a couple days ago on funk and rock playing. It totally sold out. Now, when I say sold out, there's only 15 spots. So people were lined up for other spots. We had to turn them away and put them on the waiting list for the next thing. There's 3 more workshops coming up. And the one coming up this coming week on Thursday, September 24th is on tritone subs. That would be a great one for almost all of you. We're going to talk about the mechanics of tritone subs and analyze a ton of tritone sub material from Michael Brecker to Coltrane to Johnny Griffin to on and on and on. So that would be a great one. And there's 2 other workshops. One on October 1st is on expanding your vocabulary on the 1 chord. Very specific, very cool stuff. And then we're doing a rhythm changes workshop on October 8th. We have literally a handful of spots left for those 3 workshops. So just go here, register. They're $35 each. They're done online, and we get to communicate. Like, it's not like this where I'm talking to a camera. No, we're communicating. Me and 15 of you, we're working together. I'm hearing you play. You're hearing me play. It's pretty hip stuff. Okay, so let's do this. I'm gonna now play these chord changes so you can hear Art Tatum changes. This big, long circle of fourths thing that finally lands in the 5th measure where we need to land on that C7. So I'm just gonna have the track play, and I'm just gonna play the roots of those chords so you can very obviously hear what's going on. Right. So it has a totally different flavor to it. Some people call this like the cycle 4 set of chord changes, or the circle of fourths thing, or the start on the flat 6 thing. If you're playing rhythm changes in C, you just remember start on A flat, the flat 6, and do the circle of fourths. So people refer to this as different things, but a lot of people credit Art Tatum with historically coming up with this set of changes. So what I want to do now is move on to 2 bits of vocabulary. Let me play this example number 3 for you here. It sounds like this. It sounds a bit like Baroque music. And it is. Bach came up with this centuries ago. If you listen to some of the partitas, well, just listen to, music he wrote, you're going to find this circle of fourths thing in there. So yeah, Art Tatum changes. Maybe let's call them Johann Sebastian Bach changes, because it's true. It's true. Okay, so let me do this. I'm going to play item number 3. I'm going to play those 4 or 5 measures. Then I'll improvise the last half of rhythm changes. I'm going to play them again. So I'm going to play item number 3 for you twice. But here's the thing. I'm not going to use those chord changes. My iReal Pro here is going to be playing the traditional chord changes from number 1. So you're going to hear some clunking. Let's check it out. All right, so yeah, that sounded pretty out. Now, in the real world with a good player, when they heard me doing that, they would hear I'm clashing, I'm doing something different. So a good piano player or a guitar player would just stop comping. They just lift their hands up and go, what's he doing? They would listen. They would realize I'm doing something that isn't what they're doing. So they may stop, or they may realize they may be hip enough to jump in on the second chord. They're so quick because they know this, because they watched this video. Okay. Yeah. And now, why do all those quote unquote wrong notes sound good that I'm playing? The answer is it's clear that I have a plan. It's clear the repetition in there, right? It's a very motivic lick. That lick is the simplest thing in the world. Look at it. It's a 3-note lick. It's 3, 1, flat 7. That's the lick. Everything there's 3, 1, flat 7. Look at the second chord. 3, 1, flat 7. Look at the next chord, F sharp. 3, 1, flat 7. Look at the B chord. 3, 1, flat 7. And then I had a passing note the last couple times through. There's nothing simpler. So I'm really relying on the circle of fourths, the logic and strength of the circle of fourths, to make your ear think that I'm not insane. So what you're hearing is like, well, Antoniuk's kind of playing some weird stuff there, but I can tell he means it. I can tell there's structure behind it. That's what even a non-musician can hear. So now let me play that example again with these chord changes, with the hip piano player. And that is why you should have a hip piano player, hip bass player, hip guitar player in your band, because it sounds fantastic when they know that's going to come, right? So yeah, and again, for you folks who are comping or accompanying, this is going to make you a better comper and accompanier. And by the way, that's why piano players, guitar players, bass players, you get hired. Yes, we love your amazing solos, but for me, I want someone that makes me sound good. If I'm the band leader, I want a piano player that is an incredible accompanist, that facilitates what I want to do, that creates moments behind me. None of that is soloing. The soloing is awesome, and I expect it, but I'm looking for a great accompanist. This makes you a great accompanist. All right, let's look at one last thing, and this is from a ridiculously great Don Byas solo from 1945. I can't believe it's so early in the history of modern jazz. I mean, bebop was barely a thing in 1945. Don Byas killing it, playing duo with Slam Stewart. Anyway, so here's a cool moment from that solo where he does a lot of this Art Tatum circle of fourths business. And so this is sort of an excerpt from there. And I'll just play it twice through, and you can see that what he is playing, it's very simple. If you take a look at it now, the first 4 notes, all chord tones. The next 4 notes, 3 of the 4 of them are chord tones with 1 passing note. The E flat is a second scale degree. Next 4 notes under the F sharp chord, chord tones. Next 4 notes, chord tones, if you want to call the 9th a chord tone. So the thing is, this thing is like 90% chord tones, but how he's weaving his way through the changes, the wonderful resolutions, the 3rd to 7 resolutions, and other resolutions too. So check this out. This would be a wonderful thing to get under your fingers. So before I play it, I'll just say goodbye right now. Thank you for tuning in. Please share this video with other musicians who you know could get a lot out of it. I want to work with you at Jazzwire too. So for you adult amateurs who have been plateaued for years, for decades, that's what we do there, is we get people moving. And check out one of the online workshops. If you're not quite sure if Jazzwire is for you, this is an easy way to see how we work together and how powerful it is. So here we go, some Don Byas.